Some motherfuckers, Weiji is in the final of the World Cup, and Esipenko has been eliminated, but he is still having chances of qualify to the candidates if he won against Yakuboev in the in the third and fourth place. So okay, I need to show us the decisive game. The decisive game, sorry, who give Weiji the ticket to the final of the World Cup and to the candidates tournament. Okay, they draw the two classical games and the first rapid, so this was the fourth rapid, the second rapid game of the day. Okay, Weiji open with e4, e5 by Esipenko, knight f3, knight c6, and when he selects the Italian opening with bishop c4, bishop c5, c3, knight f6, d3, and I'm not going to stop so much in the opening because everything is more or less normal, h6 before, trying to win space in the queen side. I always recommend the move a5, that's my favorite move in this type of position, not allowing white to take space in the queen side. H6 because really the machine say that doesn't matter so much because for that space that white is winning in the queen side, but in a long term it's going to be annoying, I think. A6, short castle D6, 92, everything normal development, bishop 3, knight C4, bishop B3, everything is also normal. And they finally, okay, here after queen D7, the strongest move for white is keep the bishop over the board. Because it's well known that in the Italian, when both bishops are traded and they only keep yes, they only have the knights over the boards and the huge pieces, the position has tendencies of being equal. In this specific case, after a5 play by Weiji, white is still slightly better thanks to the queen side advantage of thanks to the yes, the a5 pawn and the b4 pawn. But okay, the position is more or less equal now with only knights, so that's a good idea to play bishop c2 here, maintaining the bishop. For example, if I'm not clear how black can continue because, for example, bishop b4 can look normal, but now h3, now it's a5, followed by bishop a4. That's the white idea. Keep the bishop to one day play a5 and bishop a4. That's the white idea. And this d5 in this position, white is slightly better. D5 here doesn't work because B5 and the A5 pawn is hanging, so bishop C2 could be a great move. And yes, like I told, the idea could be then play A5 and maybe bishop A4 one day. And just try to keep pieces over the board. Because when you trade all the bishops, the position with knights are more or less equal. Okay, A5 by Weiji, bishop takes, queen takes, and now knight E7, typical move, going to G6 with knight because the knight on C6 is completely misplaced. Rook 81 c4 here was another possibility, knight g6, queen c2, and queen d2. That's because the queen is bad placed on b3. I experimented that in one of my own games. In Italian, I placed the queen on b3 and later I lost because the queen was misplaced there all the time. So here the best was just return with the queen to d2. Okay, he played rook 81, which is a normal move, knight g6, knight f5. But this move gives black the option to play with d5. Good move. C4 takes queen c6. Both players are making a great game. Until here, queen c2, king f8, improving a little bit. G3, rook d8, trying to trade rooks. Now he returned with the king to g8. Like I told you, the position is slightly equal, more or less equal, but I have a slightly advantage thanks to the queen side pawns. More space there. Knight d2. And here, Sipenko makes the first mistake of the game. Okay, for a rapid, they are in the move 26, so that's normal. Here he should play queen a4, playing active with the queen. Queen b3, I return, and okay, but here black is more active than in the game, of course. But queen e4 trying to go active was a better idea. It's just that he trades queens, who is not a good move, because now white is going to have a slightly advantage all the time. The spatial advantage used to be stronger without queens in the board. Uh, because in the endgames you can push your pawns as far as you want, and as it's more important to have the pawn so far advanced without queens than with queens. So queen d7 takes knight b3, and knight here would move going to e6. Now the knight is misplaced on g6, so now we're going to go to e6. Here, Weiji played b5, who according to the machine lost the small advantage, was stronger, just still improving the pieces. Because okay, maybe he breaks through so fast. I suppose that he should just play more quietly with, for example, f3 followed by king f2 or knight e3, as I still improving the position here. For example, h4, h5, king e2, knight c5, and knight. I like this plan, knight c5 and knight d3 to play f4. I really like this plan. But over here another quiet move like queen d2 and knight d5, but looks like first you should improve your pieces and later one day break on b5. But here the knight is, I'm not going to say bad, but it's a little bit, yeah, not misplaced on f5. The king is still on g1, so I think that you should first improve your pieces and later break with b5. Okay, b5 by YG, king f7, knight d3, rook c8, knight d3, knight d5, sorry, good regrouping of the knight, improving the knight, king e8, now knight b4, very good, attacking the e6 pawn, knight e6. But the idea all the time is that if you take here, rook e8 is coming, and this knight is trapped on, the knight is trapped because if you play knight b4 now, b8 is coming, winning material. So for that reason, he still can take on a6, sorry, so he's still improving the position. Now the king came to the center, and finally Esipenko trade one pair of knights, good idea. Rook d5, knight d6, takes king e3. And here was so strong for Esipenko rook b8 activating the rook. And the idea is incredible. If knight a6, rook b3, king f2, rook b2, king e3, rook b3, of course, if with black we want the draw. But if rook d3 is so interesting that here rook d2 and the knight have no squares on e6. That's very interesting. But now the e6 knight is so powerful. And like I told you, the e6 knight have no squares. So very interesting situation. But okay, Esipenko still playing normal, taking space with g5, good idea. Now c5 mistake by YG because this allows black to activate so much with rook b8, knight a6 and rook a8. That's the problem of c5, that we are putting now the rook is not defending a5. Okay, knight b4, rook a5. Now black is better because this rook is so active here and this knight is so well placed here because have the d4 square to enter. So c6, but okay, YG is still in the game, of course. C6, rook a4. No trade rooks, of course. Black rook is so active. Rook b5, sorry, knight d4, activating both pieces. Rook b8, and here was stronger to play king f2 because we know that black is coming with rook a3 and take here or take with the knight. So it's better to make prophylaxis king f2, rook a3, and king g2. Still the king safe, defending a2, and say, okay, you're going to take on f3, but later the c6 pawn is weak, sorry, the a6 pawn is weak, so white is going to have enough counterplay. So he played knight d5, king here, and here, when I was in the game on live, I expect f4, sorry, that's my favorite move here. And the machine said that the rook f8 was fine too, rook a3, king f2, and just go to g2, and the king is safe. Instead of that, he take on f6 with the knight. The problem of take here with the knight is that now you haven't this plan because now the knight is hanging. So you're going to put back your king on d2, and that's the problem of knight f6. So he should place the king back on f2 because now I'm going to take with the knight. And, okay, the a2 pawn is hanging. Rook a8. Here, king b5 could be winning for Esipenko, followed by king c4 and rook a2, and just activate the king looks like the best move. Instead of that, Esipenko goes so materialistic, going for the h2 pawn. That's not my favorite way. Just you should just repeat and go with king b5. The problem of that is this a little bit passive, and white can activate so much. Knight g4, knight h6, rook g3, knight f5, rook g2, rook a7. And here comes okay, that's the first mistake of Esipenko, because he play king b6, who have the problem of knight e3. He should play or rook b2 or rook a2 with advantage. The position is not completely winning, but looks so promising for black. Look. Well, the most probably result here is a victory for black. But he played king b6, and after knight e3, now white is threatening the rook, and is threatening knight d5. So you should just move the rook, I don't know where. Maybe rook d2 or rook a2, I don't know. I suppose rook d2, but okay, you should move the rook, but later you're going to have trouble because the knight is coming to d5, to c5, so black here is, white here is so close to equal the game. But Esipenko here made the huge blunder of the World Cup, and I watching the camera of the live board, and he have the hand close to the rook, and he's thinking about move the rook, move the rook, move the rook, and in 1 second he change his mind and he take the pawn. He play g6 and he blunder the rook. That's no more. He play g6 and knight g2. No more. So yes, very how to say very uh, painful moment for Esipenko, but okay. Just have this thing that sometimes you are playing good, you make a blunder, you miss something, and you just lose the game. But okay, at least Esipenko have another chance to qualify to the candidates against Jakubow. So let's see if he managed to do that. Bye bye, motherfuckers.